Right, so we'll kick off now. So my name's Nathan Thomas. I am a chartered accountant and a passionate electric vehicle advocate and an owner of electric vehicle. Today, we're here to talk about the salary packaging benefits of an electric vehicle, and I have a good mate of mine, Blake, who's going to run through some of the details. I'll just flick through these slides. So we are recording this session, so I just want to let everyone know that, just because there's quite a few people who wanted to attend today that aren't able to come at this time. So I promised everyone I'd record it. We've got five groups of people on this call. So the first one is the FIRE community, that is financial independence, retire early. Those guys, so the people who are pretty au fait with financial topics.
Yeah,
We've got some small business accountants in public practice as well, who are just looking to better understand some of the FBT concessions. I've got a few clients on the call as well, and we've got plenty of commercial accountants. And just finally, there's some HR professionals here just looking at some of the benefits of allowing electric vehicle packaging to their staff. The most important thing is we've got one thing in common, and that is understanding the benefits of packaging. But we all have different levels of understanding of FBT and the rules, so we'll go through this fairly slowly. So that's the plan. Just a few housekeeping rules.
And Nathan, of course, we've got our BAS agents and bookkeepers. You got a message to make sure you mention them.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I've got them under the small business accountants. So, just a few housekeeping rules. So,
Nathan.
Yep.
Sorry,
yes,
Philippa. I just want to know: will the recording be shared with us?
Sorry, what's that?
Will the recording be shared with us?
Oh yes, I will do a recording. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry
so,
to interrupt. I can't access the chat. So
if everyone can please jump on mute, that would be great. Alrighty, so the housekeeping rules. So we'll be recording this session just for people who can't come. If people can please stay on mute just for the presentation, just so Blake and I can go through the contents. If you've got any questions, if you can please type them in the chat box, and then we'll go through them at question time. The discussion is definitely limited to the cost savings of salary packaging of electric vehicles. So I don't want to sort of get into the debate about the environmental impacts, climate change, and whether the earth is flat. This is really just a webinar in relation to the finances of packaging. And after the session, if there's any interest at all, I'm very happy to stay on the call and just answer any practical questions on EV ownership. And Blake may as well, because Blake and I both have the same car. We both have a BYD Atto 3. Just a quick disclaimer. This is the fine print. Obviously, this information is not financial advice. It's really general information. And, obviously, Blake and I don't know your personal financial situations. So the content is very generic in nature. There's obviously, a few quirks that will impact various people. Presenters, so again, I'm Nathan Thomas, EV enthusiast, chartered accountant, and I've recently gone into recruitment of accounting and finance staff. Blake's an EV enthusiast. He's a novated leasing expert, and he works with a business called Fleet Network. The things that we'll cover today, the joy of owning an electric vehicle, what is FBT, and what is salary packaging, salary packaging and how that works with car fringe benefit, the conditions that need to be met for an EV to be exempt from FBT, and the potential savings to be made from salary packaging. And we'll just go through a practical example of salary packaging, for an EV and how it works. And there'll be plenty of time for questions, which I think is probably going to be the most valuable part of the session for people today. So just in relation to the joy of owning an EV, my belief, I think we need to have a few people on mute. Okay, so we need to electrify our transport to meet the net zero emissions target. I have a BYD Atto 3. That Atto 3, this is just, really broad information, but the extended range, it was $51,000. It has a theoretical range of 480 kilometres on a full charge. And we tend to get in city driving around 420 kilometres. And in country driving, we get around 330 to 350. And that's when we're on freeways. With a really, really full heavy car. And my partner and I, we've actually driven from Sydney to Darwin, and we're in Darwin at the moment, working on the road, and we plan to go through to Uluru and Cooper Pedy and then back to Sydney. So some of the discussions around this, the EVs are only good for city driving. I think, you know, we have certainly debunked some of those things. Charging at home is super convenient. If you have solar, it's extremely cheap to charge. And, you know, what we do at home, we don't even have a fast charger. We just charge from a normal power point. And it takes longer, but it's very easy for us to charge, and it's very, very cheap as well. So the joy of owning an EV, you can go long distances in an EV. There's a picture of our car as we cross the Northern Territory border. A lot of people have told us that we were completely crazy to try and attempt that, but you know, it's really exciting. And you know, we're in Darwin, and it's just been super easy and you know, real pleasure to drive. We'll be driving down the middle of Australia back to Sydney. It's a 4-month road trip, and you know, we've paid $100 in charging costs from Sydney to Darwin, and most of our charging has just been overnight in caravan parks. So, you know, a lot of people we meet on the trip, they're saying that they're spending $3,000 on fuel to get to Darwin, and it costs us $100. Just a couple of useful apps and costs of charging. So there's a really great app called PlugShare, and that lists every single charger that are in Australia, the location of the chargers, types of chargers, and the cost to charge. There's another app called ABRP. It's a better route planner, and you can put your car model in, the destination, and it works out how far you can go and where you can charge. So it's another, they're two apps that pretty much every EV driver will have on their phone. And just to give you a sense of what it costs to charge at the moment, we have NRMA chargers in New South Wales, and they're generally free. They will eventually make you pay, but at the moment they're free, and we use those to get through New South Wales on our first day of our trip. Our preferred charging is charging from home from our solar, or we can charge at night. It's 8 cents a kilowatt. So that's $480 for a full tank of fuel. ChargeFox, they normally charge 30 cents a kilowatt. So if you were completely flat battery, that would cost you $18. And BP Pulse tend to have a 60 cents kilowatt cost, and that's $32 for a tank of fuel fundamentally. So just what is FBT and what is salary packaging? So FBT stands for Fringe Benefits Tax, and it's a tax that's imposed on employers when they provide non-cash benefits to their employees. So the FBT year runs from 1 April to 31 March. It's not a 30 June year end. And FBT applies to lots of really common items such as entertainment, cars, car parking, gift cards, and any other non-cash gifts that you receive from your employer. Salary packaging is where staff receive benefits from the employer instead of salary. So, you know, people often do that to save tax. And today we're talking specifically about salary packaging the EVs via a novated lease. So salary packaging a car fringe benefit. So a car fringe benefit applies where a car is owned, it's hired, purchased, or leased by an employer or an associate. Sorry, by an employee or an associate. And there is a private use of the car by the employee or their associate. It only applies to cars that meet the definition of a car under tax law, and that's really a car that's designed to carry less than a tonne and fewer than 9 passengers. It doesn't include motorcycles, RVs, and those types of vehicles. And again, we're just looking at salary packaging of cars today. Just to give you a really high level, and how car fringe benefits work, there's 2 methods. The first one is the statutory method, and that is the one that most people use. It's very common. And just the cost of FBT, if you were to have a petrol car, $51,000 petrol car, that's going to cost $10,000 fringe benefits tax, and a $70,000 petrol car will attract a $14,000 FBT, and that comes out of your packaging as a post-tax deduction. So they're the types of savings that you'll get between a petrol car and an EV. The other method is an operating cost method, and this is sometimes used by people who use their cars a lot for work. So they may have a car, and then they keep a logbook for 12 weeks, and then they determine a percentage of the private and business use, and then there is a formula to determine how much the FBT is for those. The EVs and hybrids, they're exempt from FBT when they meet 4 requirements. So the first one is that they must be a car as defined by tax law. and they can be new cars or they can be second-hand cars. Okay, so you can have a second-hand car, and you can ask Blake, but people can actually buy their car and they can sell it and package it back. So there's options to do that. Number 2, luxury car tax must never be applied to the car. And the important thing is, so luxury car tax at the moment for this year is $89,332. And if you buy a second-hand car, the luxury car tax must not have applied when the car was new. So that's a really important point. The third one, the car must be zero or low emissions. So that's a battery EV, hydrogen cell EV, or a plug-in hybrid. And the definition of plug-in hybrid really is that you must be able to recharge off vehicle power. So you must be able to plug that car in somewhere. And then just with this exemption, it's for cars that you've purchased after 1 July 2022. So that's really important. And when you salary package a car, you can actually salary package 10 cars if you like. You can do that for your 5 kids, your husband or wife. So, you can package multiple cars, and that's actually fairly common. So I've been in lots of organisations where senior executives have multiple car packages. Just a couple of final things to remember before I hand over to Blake. Even though a car or an EV is FBT free.
Interesting that I could not hear a thing.
Well, Kartini, you might need to
You can't
mute. You can't hear me. Awesome. So EVs and FBT, even though the car is FBT free, you still have a reportable fringe benefit amount. And that's basically, certain FBT items that are over $2,000 taxable value. They will go into your payment summary at the end of the financial year. You don't have to pay any tax on that, but it can certainly impact some ATO means test thresholds, so things like family tax benefit and whatnot. The legislation for the exemption of FBT on EVs, that's going to be reviewed in 2025, and it could be modified or revoked. And the plug-in hybrids at the moment, the exemption from FBT, that ends on 1 April 2025. But any cars that you package that are hybrids that are existing arrangements, they can continue to go on after this date. Just a final thing, and this is really for the HR people on the call or hiring managers. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, and obviously Blake is as well. And I'm recruiting at the moment. It's a very competitive market, and you want to make sure that you can be as competitive as possible in the market, one for retaining staff and also attracting staff. And we are getting candidates at the moment asking us whether the employer that they're looking to go to allows them to package an electric vehicle. And that's because the savings can be so dramatic, like at $15,000 a year. So, it's a it's a very low cost to employers. The only cost really is administration, and it can be very simple if you use the right packaging company. But the savings are really dramatic for the employees. This is just a final thing, and Blake will go through a couple of the other cash rebates across the states, but I know that a lot of people on this call are from New South Wales. There is a New South Wales EV cash rebate of $3,000, but if you novate the lease and you salary package an electric vehicle, it doesn't apply. But I've put this slide in just so if someone does buy an electric vehicle and they're not novating it, then I've just set out the eligibility criteria and how you make the claim. And, we did this for our car. The New South Wales government have allowed 25,000 rebates. And as of 31st of July, only 7,800 had been claimed. So there's a lot of rebates still available. And every little bit counts. I know Queensland have a $6,000 subsidy. So it's, it's a really significant numbers. And all you do as soon as you buy the car, within half an hour, you can just quickly go online and claim your money, and you'll get it in under 2 weeks. So that's kind of everything from myself. I'm going to hand over to Blake now, and he'll go through the details of salary packaging and how it all works.
Thanks very much, Nathan, and for organising everything and for sharing your knowledge. And I think, like you said, that you'll hang around at the end to answer questions. I think that will be very valuable. So appreciate your work so far, and the fact that you're driving around Australia, well, almost across Australia, didn't quite get to the west, I think is really cool in an EV. So well done for that. A novated lease. So it's been around for a very long time, and Lately, we've had new legislation come in from the federal government, which is increasing the savings for electric vehicles. So novated leasing is already popular, but now it's gone even more so. So we're experiencing some very, very busy times, a lot of late nights, and it's good. And it's great to be here talking to you about it as well. So the reason why we've been so busy is because the employers, it's already offered by all government departments in Australia, but corporate employers are just knocking down the door because they're using this benefit, as Nathan's mentioned, to attract, retain and reward staff. Rather than give someone a $5,000, $10,000 pay rise, you're able to offer novated leasing for electric vehicles, and it can achieve the exact same thing. And employees obviously want to find ways to save money, especially with cost of living going up. So there's GST savings and there's income tax savings as well. I'm going to rely on you, Nathan, to flip to the next slide.
Oh, sorry, mate. On the trusty video.
It wasn't as seamless as we thought. So for an employee doing a novated lease, there's multiple ways where they're saving money. So first of all, they're reducing their taxable income. So with an EV, because that's what we're talking about today, all of the deductions are coming out of the employee's pre-tax salary. So that is electricity, servicing, tyres, registration, insurance, maintenance, and the finance. It's all coming out of their pre-tax salary. We do have a slide coming up that sort of talks about the difference between a petrol car and an EV, but just to touch on it briefly, with a petrol car, part of the deductions would be pre-tax and then part of the deductions would be post-tax. That's an ATO rule, but with the EVs, it's all pre-tax. In addition to the income tax savings, there's GST savings. So you don't pay GST on the car. So if you found a car for $55,000, the employer would only finance 50, saving that 10%. And then there's GST savings ongoing as well. So you're getting that 10% off tyres, servicing, insurance, registration as well. To give you a little signal, Nathan, to flip over if you can. The other thing is, say it's about time, because employees obviously love saving money, everyone does, but they also enjoy the fact that the ups and downs of vehicle ownerships is smoothed out. So if you can imagine owning a vehicle, you've got to pay registration, let's say for a year in one lump sum, or if you need to replace tyres or servicing, it can put pressure on the family household. And if you think about some of our other large items like mortgage, that's smoothed out over the course of the year. So a lot of employees come to us and they just love the fact that you have their fuel card to pay for petrol, tyres, servicing. Also, electricity can be paid. I'll touch on that in a moment. And it's all smoothed out on a fortnightly or monthly basis, depending on how the employee gets paid. So here I want to talk about traditional novated leasing and an electric vehicle novated lease. So on the left side, I hope you can see in the blue table, is that you would usually have a split of pre and post-tax deductions. And the ATO says that if employees pay a portion of their deduction post-tax, then the rest is pre-tax. And by doing that, they don't have to pay fringe benefit tax, which is what Nathan mentioned at the beginning. And so the left-hand column is what it would look like for a standard novated lease. And you can see there's savings. This is based on a $70,000 income, savings of nearly $20,000 over the 5 years, plus there's some GST savings on top of that on the purchase price of the car. But great savings for a traditional vehicle. But on the right hand side, you can see it's still the same amount deducted, but it's just all pre-tax. So all of the running costs and finance is coming out of pre-tax. It's as simple as that. So There's no requirement to make a post-tax contribution at all. Okay, and so you can see the estimated savings for this person over the 5 years is almost $37,000. And so that's sort of a great simple way to explain the difference between a standard novated lease and an electric vehicle. Perhaps a little bit small, but the writing down the bottom sort of shows you how we get to those numbers, and it's simply the finance amount for the vehicle plus all the itemized running costs: petrol, tires, insurance, rego, servicing, roadside assist. All these things are included, and it's simply a budget that's created. And if an employee wants to change it, they can. The running costs are just an amount that's estimated that are available for the employee. At the end of the day, if the employee doesn't use the running cost that's budgeted, they get that money back.
Like, quick one, sorry.
Yes.
What's the salary you guys are taking as a standard in here?
Can we go back one, Nathan, please? So this is based on a $70,000 annual income. If you were to earn more, you would see the savings increase with the higher tax rate.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah. It's also dependent on how many kilometers. So this is 15,000 kilometers a year, which is quite average. But the more kilometers you do, maybe a little bit more of a cost for the employee because there's more budget for running costs, but it's the savings are going to be more as well. So we always say for an employee, if they're comparing novated leasing to paying cash for a car or getting a loan for a car, man, it's very clear that they should at least consider novated leasing. And with an EV having the savings pretty much doubled, in simple terms, it's easy to see how affordable it is. Look at all these vehicles here. Tesla, $264 a week. That's a brand new Tesla. A BYD Atto 3 extended range, which is what I drive, as well as Nathan, driving it around Australia, $186 a week. And so some assumptions: 70,000 income, 15,000 kilometers a year. We don't know the full financial details. As Nathan said, it's not financial advice, but this is just to give you a guide. I'm going to show you how to get more information if you'd like afterwards, but this is quite eye-opening when you think about most people are probably paying that already for their car that's probably worth half that amount. And they might have a $30,000 car. These cars that we're showing here are not $30,000 car. There's $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 vehicles. We'll move forward, and I can see questions coming in, but we will. I think we've got time for that at the end, so we'll certainly answer those questions. Just a little bit of information about states and territories. Some savings there. We put the New South Wales one up there because there's a lot of people from New South Wales here, and we mentioned that $3,000 rebate isn't available with novated. So that's something to know. In the other states, some of the other states, you are actually able to get that rebate and still do novated leasing, but it's case by case. So there's links, and you can research that for sure. We'll keep moving through. So home charging. So you can claim the charging costs in multiple different ways. So with a petrol vehicle, we will give you a fuel card. With a electric vehicle, we give you a key ring, and it's basically at Charge Fox, and you can scan that at the public charging stations, and it simply deducts from your salary, much like a petrol card would do. The other way to do it is to charge at home and claim 42 cents per kilometre.
Just a quick question, Blake, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut in for questions, but
okay.
On this, can you claim kilometres at home and claim the external costs, or is it one or the other?
So in the industry, because I'm conscious that there's quite a lot of people on this call, so it does depend on your provider, but some providers will allow you to do both, and some are just saying you can only claim one. So.
And look, I know, from the fire community, and the BYD communities online that people have been complaining that one of the providers, Maxia, who are a very large player, they are not allowing any deductions for home charging at the moment. I hope that that would change because, you know, this is obviously a cost for the vehicle and it should come out of pre-tax dollars, but it is something for people to consider when they're looking at the different service providers. I'll leave that to you, Blake, if you like.
I love the picture. I love the picture that you put on there. But we actually have an offer. So Nathan and I talked about those who are on this call here. Not like your employer might actually offer it through a provider, and they could add on a provider, us, and that's great. Or you might not have a provider and we can come on, but it doesn't actually matter about that. Much like we want to share the love about EVs and how great they are to drive, it's the same with the benefit and the product. It can be misunderstood. So we want to just provide information and be educational. So happy to answer questions and things like that. If you do use the organisation that I'm employed by, Fleet Network, then we do have a special for those who are on the call, which is a free, it's a Tesla charger, but can also be used with other EVs, and it's valued at $750. So we'll pay that, and we'll give that to you because you've been on this call. You just need to let me know. If we flip over to the next slide, I reckon it's got a little bit about how you could get in touch.
Yeah, and I just want to add, Blake, because, you know, like the driver for me really is obviously just the electrification of transport. But I'm not going to share any email addresses to Blake. This isn't about lead generation, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know, everyone knows that their emails are safe with myself. But if you do anything, then we can just check that you're actually listed on the call. Alrighty, I'll go to the next slide.
Yeah, and so just a little bit of information about that. So yeah, we'll provide that. It's worth $750. It says on there by the end of 2023, your vehicle settles, but let me know and we can stretch that out for you. No problem, considering it's already the end of August. So my contact details are there. Like I said, even if you have general questions and we can't help you because you've already got a provider or something like that, or you just want a random question, or you are interested in getting a vehicle, I'd love to. My role is to talk and generate interest and education across the industry. So here to help. Phone numbers there, emails there. There's a little QR code if you want to see some figures. We pride ourselves on that personal response. So you'd get a quote emailed to you within 4 hours, business hours. Don't go on now and expect it by midnight, but you might get it by midnight, but 4 business hours now.
Alrighty, so I think I'll just go through one or two other slides just so people know that they're there. We'll go through questions now, and I'll go through all the chat questions. But we've just, like, I'll send this out to everybody as well. But we've just got a couple of little slides with additional information in there, you know, that Blake's provided. So we've just got a little bit, which is some of the lingo and whatnot. But we'll just stick to sort of questions at the moment. I'm just going to work out how to pull those questions up because I've got a little screen. Alrighty, hold on a tick. Wow, there's lots of people on the call. Chat. You might be better at this, Blake. You might have already seen them.
Perhaps. Yeah, I've seen the questions here, so I was resisting answering them as we went.
Yep, awesome. Oh, okay. Wow.
So vote 1 for BYD, picking one up tomorrow. Good job, Jared. Join the club.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Something I find a bit confusing is the pricing by salary packaging. I saw a recent advertisement for a BYD Atto 3 salary package at 71,000. Can't see where the extra 20K came from. Yeah, so when you do a novated lease, there's an amount financed, that's the vehicle, and then there's the running costs as well. So if you're working out the fortnightly amount and extrapolating that over the years, you're probably including the running costs in that. Which, if you're going to compare a novated lease to buying a car with a loan or cash, you need to do the same thing with that. So Yes, everything's included when you get a quoted for a novated lease, and it's easy to forget because we might just think, oh, we just pay, you know, whatever it is per week for our car, but actually we all pay tires, rego, insurance, servicing. So there are those costs that are there.
Yeah, I see there's a question on luxury car tax. And as long as you're under the threshold, you know, if you get a discount, it doesn't really matter what the recommended retail price is. The actual price just has to be under the threshold in order to make sure the luxury car tax is exempt. Just flicking through the next lot of questions. If I buy a second-hand EV that is pre-2022 model, is it eligible for FBT exemption under novated leasing? Do you want to answer, Blake, or I can?
Sorry, I missed that. I was reading the next question.
Oh, that's right. Well, no,
Apologise.
well, I'll answer that one. But yeah, you can buy a second-hand car as long as you package it after 1 July 2022, then it's subject to the FBT exemption. It doesn't matter if it's a model prior to that.
Yep. Associate leasing is probably something that we won't cover today, but happy for anyone to reach out. It's probably a different topic and don't want to confuse the two products, but novated leasing is what we do and what's very popular. Is there any cost?
Oh, yeah.
Liam, no.
You go, mate.
No, Liam, there is no cost to the employer. And so employers love offering the benefit because no cost and also no liability. If the employee leaves tomorrow, the employer is not held responsible at all. When you mentioned GST saving, the calculation took out the GST, then add back into the monthly installment of lease charges. Isn't it balanced out the GST? Okay, so there's a few different GSTs. So one is what I was referring to, which I said there was extra savings on the GST, and that's the actual car price. So if you found a $55,000 car, you'd only finance 50, so that's that $5,000 I was referring to. In terms of the other GST, there is GST deducted when you have pre and post tax. There's GST deducted off the post tax amount, which we listed on that previous slide. With an EV, there's no post tax, so there's no GST deducted. So GST on running costs, and then there's GST on the car. They're separate amounts.
All right. Yeah, I'm just looking at that. I'm just trying to find where we're at. A lot of questions. You know where we're at, Blake?
It's probably a good question for you, I think, Nathan. Does a novated lease reduce taxable income for the purpose of calculating Medicare levy?
That's a great question. I could probably take that offline. I don't want to shoot from the hip, but actually, well, Medicare levy is the Medicare levy. I think based on taxable income, so it would reduce taxable income, I suspect. But I best to just triple check that. I can definitely come back and confirm that. That's easy.
What are the savings for electricity costs incurred from charging from home? Yeah, they can be included. 4 cents.
Yep.
4.2 cents per kilometre.
Yeah, here we go. That track. Yeah, usually they will. I'm just reading through this one. So just the luxury car tax one, I think, sorry, I'm just trying to read through quite quickly. But I think the question is if you have a car that is secondhand, but it was initially subject to luxury car tax, you know, can you get the exemption for FBT? And the answer is no. So, I mean, the exemption is really not to try and encourage luxury cars. It's really about trying to electrify the general fleet. So, you know, if you buy a secondhand car, to get the FBT exemption, you must look at the initial invoice of the car to see whether luxury car tax applied or not.
It's a question about interest rate. What rates used to calculate that repayment of 823.06? I don't have that that's a generic number there, so I'm sorry I don't have that on hand. importantly, whenever we provide a quote, the finance amount is always listed in exact dollars and cents, and it is fixed for the term of the lease. So I always think that's very transparent and open, as opposed to 2% or 3%, and then there's all these conditions about how much you've got to buy a car for or what have you. So yeah, we always demonstrate the exact dollar and cent. And yeah, that's a valid question. I'm sorry, I don't know exact. That was just an example number. But,
Yeah. Next question I've read is about CFO can't be bothered to set up novated leasing. So what happens? It's very simple. I've provided this in all the different companies I've worked in. You know, and if you use the packaging company, they will provide you with a monthly deduction sheet, and you pay them the deduction. And then on the contra side, you take the amounts out of the employee's thing. So it's very much like a normal salary package. It's very, very easy once it's set up. So, you know, and the only complexity is when someone leaves and you have to true up the package. That's important, because sometimes if people spend a lot more money than you're deducting, you know, you just want to make sure that you cover everything when they leave.
Yeah, we actually have, Yvonne, we have a document which we call the onboarding guide, and that shows a sample deduction advice and a sample invoice, which is exactly what Nathan's referring to there. And so we've got that in a document to show how the deductions and payments are done. Happy to share that with you if you like.
There's another question from Catherine. Is there any situation where getting a novated lease for an EV works out cheaper than paying for a car outright in cash? We've both probably got views on that. I mean, I would say that if you're earning a taxable income, I can't imagine a time when, you know, subject to these cash rebates that you lose, you know, it would be dramatically cheaper for a novated lease. So, you know, you obviously have to borrow the money to buy the car under a novated lease situation. And some people look at the payments only and then the balloon payment. But the reality is you're not paying $50,000 up front, and that $50,000 has an opportunity cost. So you can invest that in shares or put on your mortgage. So, you know, novated leasing is a lot cheaper. There are some additional costs, but the FBT saving on electric vehicles will always more than offset, you know, some of the additional costs. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Blake.
Yeah, just the fact that, let's say the rebate's $3,000. Well, you're already saving on a $55,000 car, $5,000 in GST alone, even before we start talking about income tax and GST savings on a fortnightly basis. So that sort of hits that one on the head. And then, yeah, each fortnight you're saving hundreds of dollars on, you know, I don't know your salary and your circumstance, but perhaps hundreds of dollars on income tax and GST as well.
Yeah. Next question, you go.
Can leasing be done for 1 year only, i.e. pay out the lease after 12 months? Yes. So employees have the choice. They can choose anywhere between 1 and 5 years. So 1 year is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Just reading the next one. When you show tax savings, what is the base that the saving is compared to? Is that compared to the equivalent petrol car or compared to your salary if you didn't lease a car?
What we have on our quote is it shows you everything broken down, and it shows you the amount that's coming out pre-tax, and then it shows you how much your pay is going to be short. So like some of those images that we showed before, which had a picture of a car and the number, and it might said you're short $200 a week. Well, that's short compared to what you're currently getting.
So can I just, I thought it's easier just to come off mute. So whenever I see a calculator, and I'm looking at one at the moment, it will say, yeah, let's say $1,000 per month for an EV over 3 years, and it'll show, you know, if you're a high salary earner, it might be $14,500 annual tax savings. So the cost is actually less than what you're going to save in tax. That's the bit I'm not quite getting my head around. You can save more in tax than what's actually going to cost you. And I'm just trying to think, how do all these calculators work when the cost to me out of my take-home pay is less than what my annual tax savings is? Because if I look at that, it's like, well, I get a free car.
Yeah. Well, the cost to your take-home pay is already taking in consideration the saving. So if it says, I don't know what website you're looking at, but if it says the cost to your take-home pay is $400 a fortnight, well, that means your pay is going to be $400 short to what it currently is. And maybe if you didn't do a novated lease, it would have been short $600 a fortnight. But because you're getting tax savings, your pay is going to be short $400 a fortnight. And so when they say what the total savings is, it's simply the gap.
Yep. Next question is a really good one. A really good question. It's on the Victorian, the levy that's being charged on electric vehicles. Can we claim that through the novated lease? I haven't considered that. You there, Blake?
Yeah, I'm looking for that question. I can't see that one.
Yeah, so it's just like, is the road user charge in Victoria, can that be claimed through novated lease?
That I don't know the answer to, but I could come back to you on that if I can.
Yeah, I would suspect it would be, because it is a cost. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know about the Victorian thing, but it's probably is that based on kilometres? Does anyone know whether that's based on kilometres? Because that would sound like a normal. Yeah, it would be a normal cost of car, so I couldn't imagine why it wouldn't be. Is the charger including install? I'm going to guess that that's a no.
The charger that we're giving away. Yeah, no. So we'll pay $750 for that charger, and then it's yours to do what you like with. Yep.
And then it's being charged. Yeah. Okay, I'm just reading through some more of them. Novated lease. Do employers allow their employees to choose their novated leasing provider? So, Maya, the question is sometimes. So sometimes there'll be one provider, and sometimes there'll be multiple providers, and some employers will say that you can use anyone. Normally, there's only a couple of providers because it's additional administration, and it is handy for the employer to deal with one provider, and then they get one invoice to pay for everybody's cost for the month. But I was having a chat to a few other people earlier. And if you get a quote, you have to use someone and you think the quote's really excessive, I just recommend that you go and get another quote from another company just to keep those people honest, and then go to your HR department and say, look, we're being ripped off. You're giving us one provider and it's really unfair, and that, then you can challenge that. And I think Blake might have a few comments on a few of their customers as well.
Yeah, I think I would like to add that if your employer only offers one, exactly right. Tell them to add another one, because it's competitive with price, with customer service, all of these things. And even like if we're the only ones, and like we don't have a single contract where we're exclusive provider. Like we don't stipulate it in our contract. We encourage it because if we're not providing a good service, then why should we be doing this for the industry? So employers shouldn't be shy about adding 2, 3. You're right, Nathan, you don't want 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because then it gets confusing. But 1 or 2, 3, not much difference.
Next question, Blake. Is there a financial sweet spot for the length of a novated lease?
It does depend. It depends what your value is. I mean, some people they're valuing cash flow, so they want to do it over 5 years because it's going to cost them less per fortnight. Sometimes people aren't so concerned about cash flow and they just want to save as much money as possible. And you might do a shorter period if that's the case, save more money on income tax because you've got more coming out of your pre-tax salary. So there's no right or wrong way to go about it, but you certainly can save more money in tax if you do a shorter period.
Yeah, and the next question, is there a balloon payment that needs to be paid at the end of the lease? And the answer to that is yes. And that's going to be subject to a variety of things, and you go through that when you go through your quote with the novated leasing company.
Yep, that's a ATO rule, so it depends on the length of the lease. 5 years is 28%, for example.
The next question I think I answered during the course, but can you do a couple of vehicles, or you can only do one, so you can definitely do multiple. There's no issue with that. Just flicking through things. What happens at the end of the 5-year lease?
I think someone asked a question about paying interest. There is interest. We should say that there's finance involved when you do a novated lease. So there is interest involved. Yes. What happens at the end of the 5-year lease? You have a residual value, which is 28%. You've got 3 options. 1, you pay the residual and the car's just yours. The second option, you release that same car and the fortnightly amount drops down because it's going to be based on the residual. And so you do it for a further term. And then the third option would be to sell it or trade it in, pay off the residual. Maybe you can get a bit more for the car, make a profit, and then start the whole process again.
Yep. And then what happens if an employee leaves, Blake?
Yep. So that's a good one. So if an employee leaves, the employer, we do a reconciliation. So any balance is worked out and sent to the employee. But then from an employer perspective, that's it. It's just like if an employee left with a loan. That's it. They're not connected to the employer. So the employer's only responsibility with a novated lease is to ensure that they're deducting funds and making payments to the provider whilst they're still working there. Once they're gone, they're gone. From an employee point of view, if they left, then they would have 2 scenarios. 1, they would go somewhere that offered novated leasing, which is most employers these days. They would simply pick it up and run with it there. It doesn't matter who the provider is, they can just transfer it. The second scenario would be that they go somewhere that doesn't offer novated leasing, or maybe they're unemployed. In this scenario, then they can either pay out the finance, there's always a payout figure, or just maintain the monthly finance amount. They wouldn't be getting any tax savings because they don't have an employer offering them the benefit, but and they'd prefer to have the tax savings, of course, but it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of people driving out on the road with post-tax finance payments as it is. So that's that scenario.
Yep. Is it difficult for the employer to set up?
No, it's not. And that's where my role, or someone like me, depending on who your company that you're talking to is that we're experts at it and we want to make it as easy as possible. So education, we can send out an accountant to sit with your accountant, or we can show you the deductions and how they work. And we just want to make it as smooth as possible for the employer.
Yep. And the next question is, can you set up and offer novated leasing when you only have a small number of staff? And the answer is yes. You can do it with 1 staff member, 2, 1,000, 10,000. And do you have a view on the term of the lease? Pros and cons are going 3 to 4 to 5 years. So I think Blake's answered that. It's mostly around cash flow and the amount of tax that you want to save. So shorter term, higher payments and higher tax benefit. Longer term would be better for cash flow. And how could I set this up to offer to my current staff or tempt new recruits? Liam, I'm just going to say, reach out to Blake, mate. And I can say as well, actually, so I used to be the CFO of a business that acquired Fleet Network. So I was actually at the business that purchased Fleet Network. I have packaged cars through the businesses. So I've actually used the service myself, and it's a really seamless, simple service, save a ton of tax. And that was even when I had a petrol vehicle. Now with an electric vehicle, it's just staggeringly more savings. The next comment, noting the comments, if your company doesn't do novated leasing, if you want to use another novated leasing provider, aside from Maxia, which is the current employer's novated leasing company, how can this be achieved as Maxia don't cover charging costs yet? So a few people have raised this with me prior to the webinar. So noting the comment, if your company doesn't do novated leasing, if your company doesn't allow salary packaging, then you can't, then you don't have any option to salary package. And I think if I was at an employer who wasn't providing salary packaging and I could be saving $10,000 a year, then I'd be having that conversation and lobbying them to make sure that they provide it. Because I think it's crazy that an employer would not allow that. Can Blake come out to my workplace to talk novated? Depends where you are, Liam. You can go on mute, but you can let us know where you are. Blake does do. He's got a lot of people, and he's got some of his staff on the call at the moment. But yeah, they do that. In various locations, so you can certainly reach out to him. Big roads. Yep. So run through that. I'm just checking. Can you do multiple leases? Yep. So we've said that already. So we can definitely do multiple leases. If you move employers, can you transfer your novated lease? And the answer is yes. Is residual also pre-income tax? No, that's definitely not. So residual payment is post-tax. And can any type of company do this? You can, and there's can be more benefits if you're, there's various different. I know charities can provide extra FBT exemptions. So there's probably no actual benefit if you're in a charity and you're getting an electric vehicle because you're already getting sort of 17K worth of FBT free packaging. Look, that's all the written comments. I might just throw it out. I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I might just throw it out because I've been in a lot of conversations where people got questions in relation to packaging. So if anyone wants to jump on the mic and ask any questions to Blake or I, and then we might just move to any general EV questions.
Because I've got a question here.
Yep.
Yep. Firstly, I've been told that if you're leasing a car to obviously noted lease, you can't count that as your asset when you're applying for something like bank loan or something like that. If you do that through a bank loan or car loan, you can include that as part of your asset. If that's
Mate, I don't know if you heard that, Blake, but it's very, very echoey. I'm finding it difficult to hear the question, actually.
The question was about, can you declare that vehicle as an asset when you're applying for finance?
Yeah. Do you want to answer that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the vehicle is under finance. So it's much like if you had a loan for a car, you basically do have a loan for a car. So you don't own that car outright just yet. You've got finance on it. So it's not a true asset just yet.
Yeah, and the liability will work against you. So it will reduce your borrowing capacity. So when you're putting your assets and liabilities down, you'll be that'll come up on a Veda search.
The residual
second
value.
question is.
Yep.
And my second question is, guys, I work for say public service, and how hard it is to convince your employers, because you know how rigid they are. Most of the government departments are. So how easy would be to convince them to say, I've been offered this quote from Blake, and I've been offered this quote from Selectus, and please compare the quotes and give us a better option, more variety and stuff like that. Have you encountered any issues like that?
I'll answer that question. So there's a couple of different things. So if you're working for a really big government department and they've got a provider and they're set, sometimes it can take a while to change and what have you. So maybe you're not going to be able to get your next car on it directly. However, for government departments, there is a clause in there that say you do have to use a certain provider for deductions out of your pay, but you can use other providers to source finance and source vehicles for you. So that can often be a way to keep that provider accountable on price. And so that's what's called a third party novated lease. So you can do that if you can't get your employer to change their mind or add another employer.
I'll just go through a couple of
One
questions
more,
on the
last question.
Yep. You go for it. You go, mate.
So I'm saying one more thing. What are some of the facts that noted lease quote has been built into noted lease? But I've seen Blake's quote right now, which he was telling me, say, for on an average, Tesla long range was about say $250 per week or something like that. The quote I got from Selectus, just like a normal calculation, it came to $650 per fortnight, so about $350, $375.
So it was less.
Per week.
Yeah.
So is that?
Yeah. That's probably because your salary is probably higher than 70, perhaps, or your kilometers could be different. I've just provided some very general, a very general guide.
I thought it would be more about fat and stuff built in the quote by one provider to another provider.
Could be. You could have a look at what's included. I think that's savvy. Whenever you get a novated lease, have a look. My organisation I love because we don't add all these different products in and which aren't necessary. But there are organisations out there, been in the industry for 18 years, and I've seen so many things and adding on so many insurances that you'll never use. So that could be the case, sir. But it also could be simply that you're earning more than 70 grand. So it's a very difficult question to answer, but I can give you a guide.
And I think more the pay, the more tax savings are. Isn't that the case?
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
I'm saying, isn't the case that there is more savings than you earn more through novated lease?
Generally, yep.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
I was going to quickly run through a couple of the other questions on the side.
Sure.
So can a couple enter into a novated lease between two salaries? So 50-50 or one lease per person? Never heard of that.
One lease per person, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it has to be in someone's name and someone has to apply for the finance. But sometimes your partner's financial situation can help your credit application, but it would still be in one of your names.
Yeah, the next question, can I trade in my current car as part of the setup of the lease? Alternatively, can I chip in, say, 20K up front? I mean, I'll answer this, Blake, but, you know, there'd be no advantage for you putting extra money into the car. So you're better off selling your car and taking the cash, in my view, and then banking that, which is just, and then, because otherwise you're just reducing the tax savings that you would otherwise get through the salary packaging arrangement. So happy for you to add anything, Blake.
Yeah, no, 100%. That money you've got for that car, 20 grand, that's post-tax money. You've already paid income tax on it. So I 100% concur with that, Nathan.
Yep. And then is the 28% residual 28% of the price just of the car itself, or 28% of the car plus costs?
It's 28% of the amount financed.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And can you choose an insurance company within the novated lease, or is it tied up? And you definitely can. So there's options with that.
And I can just say sometimes companies will quote you including their own insurance.
Yeah.
And that's okay. They can do that, but you can use your own. So if you have a cheaper insurance or you just prefer insurance elsewhere, don't hesitate to bring your own insurance in.
Yeah, so there's just two other ones. One of them is just a comment because someone was just copied something from Fleet Partners website, and you know I watch all the novated leasing companies, you know, and their announcements. And Fleet Partners in the last quarter, 43% of their salary packaged cars were electric vehicles and hybrids. So it's like this is a really hot industry at the moment. Everyone's doing it, and if you're not saving by packaging an electric vehicle, you're missing out. And then how is the interest rate on the novated lease loan calculated? I might just quickly answer these and Blake can plug in, but they've got multiple different financiers. Generally, some companies will use one, but you know, a lot of the providers have a couple, and then they will look at the best one based on your personal financial situation and then, you know, quote you on that. Do you want to add anything, Blake?
Yep, no, you're spot on. Exactly right.
Look, I think we've probably,
Just
I don't know if there's any
quickly
final
on that.
questions. Yep.
Yeah, just quickly on the interest rate, how does it compare to, say, a mortgage rate or a secured personal loan?
Well, it depends. I don't know what those rates are, but you're looking something like 6 to 9%, something like that at the moment for novated leasing.
Yeah, so I'd say it's more than a mortgage, but it's significantly less than personal loan.
And yeah, again, don't forget, you're not financing the full amount because of the GST savings,
Yep.
and then you're saving income tax and GST along the way, which is 32%, 47%, whatever it might be, your tax rate. So a lot more than the few $1,000s of interest, but there is interest. It's still, good to look at as well, for sure.
Yep. Any other final questions? Then we'll just quickly move to any EV questions.
Yeah, one quick question. You said the FBT rules were subject to change around 2025. If you're a mid-lease, so you're 2 years into a 4-year lease at that point, are you then exposed to that FBT change, or because you're already locked into the lease, is that then locked in for the period of the lease?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's locked in. Yeah, sorry, Blake, you go.
Sorry. You
No,
got
no,
it.
you go for it, mate. You're the expert.
Okay. Well, we both said the same thing. It's locked in. If you join now, let's say, it'll last for the 5 years if you did a 5-year term. So as long as you're in, you're in.
Understood. Okay, so if you take it out anywhere before that 2025 proposed change, and it may still stay the same, I'm assuming,
Yep.
but you would still have it for that period ongoing.
Exactly
Yep.
right. Yep.
Yeah, so
Understood. Thank
and
you
look,
very much, guys.
No
yeah,
worries.
thank you. That's actually a really good call out. You know, if you're going to package in a year or something, it may be beneficial, particularly if you're looking at a hybrid, to package it over a 5-year period so you can continue to get the benefit. Otherwise, the hybrids are expected to sort of drop off in 2025. Any other final questions? No more final questions. I just open it up, I guess. Look, I just want to thank everyone for the call. Sorry we've gone over time. It's just always good to answer as many questions as possible, because I think it can be complicated, and people that get quotes and then they feel really hard. They think, oh, I've got all these questions, and it gets too hard. So that's sort of the formal part finished. But is there any general questions on electric vehicles? You know, we can talk about, you know, whether they catch on fire or you know, how fast they do it. Takes like 20 days to charge. Like, is there any sort of practical tips? Because like we've driven to Darwin and Blake and I both own one, and we know what it's like day in, day out. No
How is
questions?
Atto 3 compared to Model Y?
Sorry, mate?
How is Atto 3 compared to Model Y?
Did you hear that, Blake?
Yeah, I think. How does the BYD Atto 3 compare to the Tesla Model Y?
Oh.
Have you driven the Y, Nathan?
I haven't, but and look, I'm going to be super biased. I mean, I went with the BY. I'll tell you exactly how we purchased our car. You know, we've done a lot of renovations at home, and we're going all electric, and we're trying to save money, save the world, you know, all the good stuff. And then we looked at a Tesla battery, and it was a 13 kilowatt battery, and that 13 kilowatt battery was going to cost me $17,000, right? And the main benefit was really if we had a blackout. So, and then I looked at the BYD, and that has vehicle to load. And what that is that, you know, and Blake will have one, there's a cord that comes out of the car with 4 power points, 240 volts, right? If we have a blackout, we can power the fridge, we can power whatever we want through the house, like with 4 power points. And we had a planned outage in our house for 7 hours, and it was freezing, and I forgot about it. The hot water went off. And you know, like we literally just plugged some heaters and the TV into the car. So, and when you look at it, 13 kilowatts of battery for the house for $17,000, or a 60 kilowatt battery in the car for $50,000. And I got the GST back, and I've, you know, get all the benefits of packaging. Like, so for me, I'm getting a cheaper battery in the car, and I'm getting a car for free. So, I mean, we were not looking at electric vehicles initially. I looked at a battery, and I'm like, well, this is better because I wanted the battery for battery backup. So, you go for it, Blake.
Okay. The Tesla's probably faster, quicker off the mark, the Model Y, I would say. But the BYD, I mean, especially for the price, has a lot of great features. Like you say, hi BYD, and you ask it to open the sunroof, which it has, or change the interior lighting, or lots of different features that the Tesla doesn't have. I mean, I guess the BYD doesn't have the fart noises though that the Tesla has. So, but I think the main thing is for the price that the BYD. I don't know why I feel like a BYD salesperson here, but I guess I am a driver, so I have to be an advocate. But no, I like the BYD for the price point.
I'd say for the BYD, you know, it has vehicle to load, and I don't believe the Tesla has that. So you can't plug in appliances into the Tesla. Like, we're camping at the moment, and we can plug in an induction cooktop and do kettle, anything. Like, we can run appliances on the road. You know, like Blake said, it's got a lot of voice recognition, so you can sit in there and say, hey BYD, open the sunroof, and it's got a massive sunroof. You can change the colors of the lights. You can have a bit of a disco in the middle of the thing. So and it's also got CarPlay, so you can plug into your iPhone and bring that up on the screen. I just find it staggeringly good value for what you get. It's a beautiful car, lovely to drive. Yeah, so I mean, it's been flawless for us. Really enjoyed it.
Someone's asked about the BYD to fully charge at the time. So if you're on a supercharger, it can take about an hour, I think, or less. If you're on a slow trickle charger, what's that going to take, Nath?
So you know, if you're on a trickle charger like 240 volts, we tend to get say 1.5 kilowatts an hour. So it might be like 45 hours, and that's assuming you're at zero, but you never ever run your car to zero. You know, like we're city driving, we're normally at 80 and 90%. We always charge our car on solar only, and we charge it usually around 10 to 4. So we do that on a trickle charger. If you like, you can go to a 15 amp charger. So you just get a 15 amp plug in your garage. That does 3 kilowatts of power an hour. So that's a 20 hour charge from 0 to full. And again, you won't do the thing. And then a fast charger at 7 kilowatts, that's about 8 hours. So that's how long it takes.
Yeah, and I think if you think about the range being 440 kilometers, you're never going to be on 0%. You're always going to, if you do 100 kilometers, you're still going to be on 75%. So that'll charge no problem.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Just a question on the fast chargers. If you said it's 7 kilowatts, our solar is 5 kilowatts. Can I limit the fast charger to 5 kilowatts? Is it controllable that way?
I think the car does that, but it's a better question for somebody else. Yeah, so I mean, you can, if you've got a power source, like, so have you got your own charger? Or you're talking about having your own fast charger?
Yeah, it'd be adding one to the house. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, what's the constraint of the 5 kilowatts?
The solar system we have.
Oh yeah, no, that's kind of agnostic. So the Tesla, and again, Blake, you jump in, but the Tesla charger doesn't have solar smarts. You can get other chargers that can only put excess solar into the car. So there are like a Benny charger. There's a few chargers on the market, and there's some protocols that you can actually. There's some with protocols where you can actually set it up to only bring in excess solar. So it's a little bit more, it's more complex. You'd have to sit down, but you know how much you're generating out of the thing, it's not going to impact how much. Like if you've got a 5 kilowatt system, you're only going to get say 4.5 kilowatts of power at any point in time. And if you're charging your car, you're going to be supplementing that with grid power, unless you have the software that limits it to only solar.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep. The BYD reviews have said the tyres are not good. Yeah, it's so funny. The Batman tyres. And like, you know, I mean, there's just so many conspiracy theories when you go into the BYD group. So apparently there was these little dings in the roof, and there's this other issue, and then there was this rust issue, and everyone goes like completely crazy. Look, we've had no issues. I think the car drives incredibly well. I don't know if you've got any comment, Blake, on the tyres, but you know, people have said that the tyres aren't great. But I mean, I like as a non-car enthusiast, I think they're completely fine.
I'm fine with my tyres.
Yeah, no, I've not. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people talking about the tyres and you know, so many different things, but it gets actually fever pitch. Like everyone's like, I'm going to cancel my order because of this, or I read this, or someone's got this picture of something. Yeah, so I think the tyres are completely fine. Any other questions? Does anyone here have an MG ZS EV? So an MG who can confirm that they are charging at home using the Gen 3 Tesla charger? Look, I'm guessing that's probably better in the MG, one of the MG Facebook groups, to be honest. I'm just not sure. I think a lot of people on here are looking at buying an EV rather than having one at the moment. So any other final questions before we go? We'll wrap this up. Okay, all done, all finished. Awesome. I just want to thank everyone for indulging me in talking about my passion of electric vehicles. I just want to thank Blake so much for his time, because he's kind of the novated leasing expert. So look, I run regular sessions. It's mostly accounting topics, like boring stuff like accounting and tax and FBT and GST and things. I do that for my clients. But if anyone's in the accounting field and wants to jump on future discussions, let me know. This was just something I want to run because I was hearing so many people ask questions around FBT and packaging, and it's just more efficient to do it, on the one call rather than talking about it every day. So
Yep.
thanks, everyone. Have an
Thank you.
awesome night. Any final comments, Blake?
No, just thanks a lot, Nathan, for organising the lion's share of the work. So well done. And there's been a lot of, I don't know if you can see the comments, but thanking you for it all. So good on you, mate.
Thanks,
very quick-
everyone.